Even though this helmet is large, it's still too small for my giant melon head. My head, which is made up of 70% fat and 30% skull and maybe 20% brain matter. I have to confess to something. I'm not proud of it, but a lot of my humor is based on me saying dumb things with a straight face so that you can laugh at me saying the dumb thing. That's what the joke is. I say something really silly, but I say it as if I'm serious about it, and then you realize how silly it is, and haha, it's funny. But there's another layer to that. I I get a lot of humor out of people who don't get the joke. So when I say a really dumb thing, and then somebody is really quick to correct me on the dumb thing that I said, not realizing that it was a joke, I do laugh at that. Sometimes laughing quite out loud at it, um, and it's not nice. It's not really fair to the person who doesn't get the joke. After all, the joke is not a traditional joke with like setup and punchline. It's said with a straight face, acting like I'm really saying the dumb thing on purpose. Uh, so if you don't get the joke, I'm sorry. I really shouldn't laugh at you just because it went over your head. But I don't think I can stop because I still think it's really funny. I want to talk about religious deconversion. That is the topic that I want to cover on this channel for the next few videos. And a couple things that I was hung up on was number one, what do I do about the gaps in my memory? Gaps in areas where it feels like something important should be there, but because I was a young kid, I didn't understand what was going on. I don't know why certain things happened, and I don't have memories of things that seem important. The other thing is how much of my parents' history do I want to disclose in order to tell my story? Because some of it is needed for context, but I want to be careful about telling somebody else's story when I'm supposed to be talking about myself. What I decided first on talking about my parents' side of things is that I will talk only about things that are necessary for the context. I'll only talk about things that they talk about themselves with friends, with strangers, things that they are proud of, things that are a part of their own personal narrative that they freely talk about. So there's nothing confidential to disclose. And when I do talk about things that it won't be putting them in a bad light. There won't be any positive or negative judgment. It's just what is needed to explain how we got from there to here. The other thing is the gaps in the memory, and one of them keeps really sticking with me, and that is the first time my brother and I were homeschooled. That first time was fine. It was great, actually. My parents were heavily involved in my education. We were being taught every day. There was a curriculum, there was a schedule. And not only that, some of my parents' religious and church friends from the area who also had their kids homeschooled would send their kids over to our house to also be taught from the curriculum and to socialize with other kids during the day. It was kind of like what a co-op would be now, but it wouldn't have been called that at the time. And it was just a bunch of kids coming over to our house. So it was great. We would spend the day um, reading books and taking lessons and uh, after school hours, we and the other kids would ride bikes around the neighborhood and play with action figures and just run all around the neighborhood, having a great time. And it was really a great way to grow up. It was a really positive time in my childhood. But then it seemed like overnight, it wasn't really overnight. It just seemed like overnight to a little kid. But it seemed like overnight, all of that stopped. My friends were gone. Um, the curriculum slowly went by the wayside. And instead of having all this socialization and all this fun playtime with other kids in the neighborhood, we were isolated. And it began this cycle of isolation at home and then getting put into a religious school and getting used to the idea of having friends again and socializing again, and then being taken out of that school and being isolated again, and then going to a different school and then being taken out. And this cycle went on for years. And I don't have a memory of why all that started in the first place. Why did all of my friends disappear? Seemingly overnight. Again, it probably wasn't overnight, but I was a little kid. It seemed like it all happened suddenly. Um, and my conclusion is it doesn't really matter. Um, it was probably something I wouldn't have been able to understand at my age. What age was that? Was it 7, 8, 9, something like that? Something in that age range? Probably something I wouldn't have understood or cared about anyway. It likely was some kind of doctrinal difference among my parents and their church friends. And that wouldn't be the only time that happened. You have to remember how uh, faith focused this community was. So, a difference in the interpretation of scripture can be everything. That can be a reason why you're not friends with somebody anymore. Um, and this is something that would have some precedent. It wouldn't be the only time. So I don't remember whatever doctrinal difference my parents had with their church friends and their neighbors. Does that really make a difference? Not really. So I don't remember exactly what got the ball rolling, but the important thing is the ball got rolling and it began this cycle of isolation, socialization, isolation that went on for years. And it had an outsized impact on me and how I saw the world and the tools that I had to figure things out. That's what's actually important. So, where these gaps in my memory or they don't let me explain why certain things happened. It's not really that important in the big picture. I think it bothers me more than it would bother you to not have those gaps filled in. Um, it's been suggested that I just ask my parents about it, and it's a fine idea. But it's a little more complicated than that. First of all, my brother and I have had these conversations with my parents, had lots of conversations with my parents over the years. Sometimes it um, uh, leaves the answers um, unclear. It leaves more questions than it answers, and that has something to do with their word of faith belief system. And that's something that maybe we should explain through the story as we tell it rather than explain it right now. But suffice it to say, just asking my parents may not provide the clear cut answers that I would be looking for. So we are just going to talk about what is actually relevant, talk about the events, and as much as I remember the why I will tell you the why. But where I don't remember the why, I will just tell you the what and the how. That's what we're going to do. It won't be the only thing that we talk about, but it's time to talk about how we got from there to this place where I'm wearing this undersized helmet on my head and I can't add up to 100. Thanks for everyone for watching. Brian Tulsa catchphrase out.